Welcome to Furious Driving, and today you join me in one of the best cars you're ever going to get the chance to drive, if you're lucky enough. This is a 2006 Alfa Romeo 159 2.4. Now, as the description on the video says, this is, in my opinion, the best Alfa Romeo that they ever built, but also it's perhaps the least Alfa-ish as well. And hopefully this won't upset you too much, and I'll try and explain to you why I think this might be the case. So, running back through time a little bit, get you into the story of the 159. It came out in 2004 and ran to 2011, and it replaced the 156, which was one of the most successful Alfas that they ever built. And that had been based on the old Tipo platform, much enhanced, much reworked, but ultimately still an early 90s, late 80s design that ran all the way into the new millennium. The 159 though was completely new, all fresh. And it was first shown to the world at the Geneva Motor Show in 2004. And gone was the old Tipo platform. In was the new GM Fiat Premium platform, which it only shared in the end with the Spider, the Brera, and a couple of concept cars, the Kamal and the Visconti. Now, I should of course address the elephant in the room that yes, this is my car. This is the car I rescued from a field with a timing issue earlier this year, and the plan always was to sell this car. The problem was, it is just so nice, I couldn't bring myself to part with it, but I'm finally doing a review on the car, partly because enough time has passed from the series of videos when we were doing work on it, but also because I'm thinking it might be time to actually sell this car now. Might not have it for too much longer, which makes me very sad indeed. If anything reconciling me, that does give me the option to buy a V6, because I've never tried one of those. Now the thing is, around this time, Alfa were kind of concerned that they weren't really selling well in the fleet markets. People who love cars, who love driving, who just want to look good in a car, architects basically, they were buying Alfas, but there aren't many architects out there, so they weren't selling a lot of cars. So they wanted to try and out-German the Germans, build an Alfa Romeo that would appeal to a German car buyer. So they'd walk away from that Audi or that BMW, and they would step into an Alfa Romeo instead. The thing is though, Alfas have always appealed to the kind of people who buy Saabs rather than the people who buy Audis. So it was an interesting thing to do, but that's where the money lay, and that's what they needed to do. Now, I remember hearing at the time that Alfa poached a lot of engineers from the German brands to help with the engineering aspects of the car. I don't know if that's true or not. What is true though is that the platform, the GM Fiat Premium platform, was engineered almost entirely by Saab in Sweden. And if you remember the old Top Gear episode where they explained why Saab was firstly one of the greatest brands in the world, and secondly why GM gave up and shut them down, you'll understand why this car feels very different to any other Alfa. Because, yeah, they don't use 2 bolts when 7 will do, put it that way. The design is pure Alfa Romeo. It was done in collaboration with Central Stilo and Giugiaro, who had designed the original Brera concept back in, I think, 2002, which is where much of the car's look and feel comes from, and of course the Brera 2-door, which springs off this car as well. So they used all the Alfa styling tropes, which we'll talk about in a second when we pull over to look at the design, but adding in those incredible stacked cylindrical headlights, which, oh, they're just incredible, so beautiful. But a criticism that you could never really level at Alfas prior to this was that they were just too heavy, too well built. I mean, the 156 was really good. That changed things on a lot, because 156s don't really break. They last incredibly well, but they do kind of feel a wee bit flimsy. This though, with the GM Fiat platform engineered by Saab, it is suddenly a world apart. You feel like you're getting into a premium car. you feel like you're stepping into an expensive German car. It's a completely different ballgame. But let's pull over, have a look at all the design aspects of this thing, and then we'll go for a bit more of a drive and talk more about that. And this is such a nicer Alfa than that toenail. Sorry, toenail owner. Right, so this is something of a visual treat. It's not often these days you get to look at a car and describe it as actually beautiful. There really are very, very few cars indeed you can classify as virtually a work of art. You could put this thing outside your house and have it as an art installation and never drive it, and just be happy just seeing it outside the house every day and smile. Never mind getting a statue or a fountain in your front garden. Get an Alfa 159, it'll bring up your property values. So let's look over the outside of this thing and the styling details that really do make this thing 100% Alfa Romeo. I'm going to start at the back, not the front, curiously. Now, you'll notice it's got a very short, stubby boot area, so it's actually quite a big boot area inside the car. It comes all the way to the back of the back seat to kind of the front of the alloy wheel, not the tyre, the alloy wheel. But the gently sloping rear glass, the short boot lid, and then the very straight down, that is pure Italian Alfa Romeo styling, and it makes it look sharp and exciting and purposeful. It gives the car visual dynamism. It makes it look like it's moving quickly, and it's got the purpose of moving quickly. So it appears more sports car-like than saloon-like, and it makes the saloon look a lot more sporting and performance-y. Moving forward, you'll notice this very sharp swage line here, just above the chrome door handles. This gives the car visual length, but also the way the hips kind of kick out, and this curve kicks out as well. It makes the car appear bigger than it actually is. This is partly done for the American market, where they're planning on selling the car over there where bigger cars sell better. And so although it's not massively bigger than the 156, but it is a few centimetres larger in every dimension, it does have visual weight. It looks bigger. Now, one thing which is a bit of a controversy, if you like, these door handles, now they are beautiful. They are proper metal chrome door handle. They're recessed inside so you can get fingers in there with the almost arrow-like cutout in the door that actually continue the forward pointing, expanding towards the rear theme of the car. And if you saw them in isolation for the first time on this car, you would think, wow, they are some of the nicest door handles I've ever seen. Unfortunately, the 156 which preceded this had amazing front door handles which were cast aluminium, which were a old school, put your hand through the handle and then push the push button, cast aluminium, beautiful things. And famously, this black area here was where the concealed rear door handle was on the 156, so it looked like a two-door coupe even though it was a four-door saloon. They, for some reason, got rid of that plan, I don't know why, and went for a standard traditional four-door. Maybe it's just cheaper to have four handles all the same, save on manufacturing costs, I don't know. So that was a bit of a bone of contention, and a few people were a bit upset when they saw that go into production. Anyway, moving forward, typical Alfa, very flared, accentuated haunches almost. The wheel arches stick out. They make the thing look like a pouncing cat, like a tiger or a lion that's ready to attack. Also, another strong Alfa design trait is you fill the arches to the edge with the wheels. They're not recessed, they're not sticking out, they are flush fitting virtually with the wheel arches. That's a strong Alfa design tradition, if you like. Now, moving into the front of the car, the face, which is what obviously you've been thinking about all along as soon as I said Alfa design. I'm not going to start at the front, I'm going to start at the back, because the face of this car starts in the A-posts and it swoops through here in this strong V that comes all the way down to the point of the bonnet, and it's a raised flat area as it drops down there, and it's actually another crease here on the corner of the wing. It comes into the wing, then creases and curves down. So there are lots of design details, but this one is the main one. It's a big V, a point, an arrow that goes all the way down to the front of the car. And when it gets here, it doesn't just do your cuore sportivo, the sporting heart. This is the traditional Alfa grille, cutting deep into the bottom of the bumper, siding through it and giving a really strong visual identity. You cannot mistake it for anything else. And not only does it go down with this beautiful pointed curved heart into there with these strong chrome grille lines, the badge itself raises up into the bonnet and curves into there. But more than that, on the 159, also shared with the Brera and the Spider, we have these magnificent stacked tubular lamps, these chrome tubes that stick forward. They've got details on them as well, so there's so much going on. And as you look at it from the side, it's surprising how much further back the beginning of it is on this outermost light all the way to here. We're talking about 30 centimetres, a foot in old money, of rake back across the bonnet. But the bonnet goes back, however the bumper continues further forwards. It's a lot of layers and design details. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing. But not only is it very, very beautiful, it's striking. It actually looks powerful. It looks almost angry. It's a car you can just look at all day and continue to find details on. And if we jump around the back quickly, there's even a little bit more there. Because in the tradition of the best designers, they've echoed the front of the car onto the rear. So although we've got 4 lamps rather than 3, we do have a stacked recessing lamp pattern going from here in the centre out to here on the edge. And of course we have our badging 2.4 JTDM on this particular model. We have our Alfa badge in the centre and the model name designation here on the left. The boot is very, very clean otherwise. It's obviously the light and the badging, but it's a very clean, simple design. There's a little bit of a lip, almost like a spoiler kind of pressed into the metal, but nothing too exuberant. It's all very subtle, very discreet and very Italian. Looking down into the bottom of the bumper, another Alfa trait is to have the number plate recessed into the bumper. And then we've got twin exhausts. This is the 2.4, this and the V6 get the twin exhausts, which make the car look more powerful and give it a nice design balance. Now, you might be wondering how to get into the boot because it is so clear. There is no door handle, there's no button or anything to push. On some models, I think it's a model year after this one, you can actually push the badge. On this one you can't, so you have to use the key fob or a button on the dashboard. Open it up, and as I say, it is a really, really big boot. I can't even reach the seats. It goes so far forward. There's a ton of space left and right. It's not a very big opening though, and this boot lid opens vertically. You think you're almost going to break the back window when you open it. However, it's a little bit of a tight entrance. Plus side though, underneath the boot floor we do actually have a proper spare wheel. It's a space saver, but it'll get you home. Better than those stupid inflatey things. And this car, quite unusually, has fold down rear seats. It's apparently a really, really unusual option on a 159 to have folding down rear seats. I mean, it's not a huge opening to get from the boot into the passenger compartment of the car, but still, it opens up the practicality of the thing so much more. I'm surprised more people didn't go for that. And bizarrely, this does make this particular car here we're stood next to far more desirable than an identical one without it, amongst 159 aficionados, apparently. So, the engines. And I'm going to read this to you from a standing position because I was going to try and memorise this and read it out to you while I was driving, but there are frankly loads. This car has the wonderful, there are 2 favourites of mine, or 3 favourites really in this particular range. There's the 2.4 5-cylinder diesel, which this is. There's the V6, obviously, although I do prefer the Busso in the 156 and things. And then there's the final one, which was the most emissions friendly one, although I think I prefer the character of the other 2. So in terms of petrol, originally you got a 1.8, a 1.9, later on a 2.2 JTS and a 3.2 24 valve V6, which is the absolute king of the hill. However, it's a GM based engine and it's only got a single link timing chain, and they are known to stretch. So even though it's a timing chain engine, you have to change the chains, which is an expensive and time consuming and annoying job to do on a car like that. But the best one of all really was one that came in towards the end of the car's run, which is the 1.75 TBI, which is the turbo Benzina, and that makes 200 horsepower. Not as much torque, I don't think, but it is ULEZ compatible, it's emission zone compatible across Europe, so if you live near a city, that's kind of the one to go for. But that's the 5 petrol engines, and the power outputs vary wildly. But that's only kind of half the story, because the bigger story is the power delivery and the way they put the power to the road. Then we've got the diesels, which are again a very different thing entirely. There was the 2-litre JTDM, which is a 4-cylinder, which I think is based on a Fiat unit, and then there is this, the 2.4-litre 5-cylinder JTDM, aka the 20 valve. That's 4 valves per cylinder, 5 cylinders, 20 valves. It started out being a 200 horsepower motor, then in 2006 it was upped to 210 horsepower, so you really want a 2006 onwards for the full grunt. This is fairly unusual to have a 5-cylinder, but the noise it makes is almost unique. You get 5-cylinder petrols occasionally, the Volvo and the Ford ones and the STs and what have you, but this is really just a wonderful thing to listen to, and the wave of torque you get from it is something else. Now we're going to climb inside. I feel like lovely metal door handle. Thick, heavy door that really does thump shut with a sturdy bang when you pull it to. I'm not sure where to begin with describing how just beautiful this interior is. I'm just running out of words just looking at it. I'll start though with the smell. One thing I can't share with you is the smell. Even after 20 years and 140,000 miles, you open the door and you are hit by the smell of Italian leather and nice carpet. It's like walking into the best hotel room you've ever seen. It is just absolutely wonderful. Materials are incredible. I always say, and I stand by this, the best leather you're going to find in any car of any value or price point is in an Alfa Romeo. This, or certainly of this decade anyway. The 156s were the same. It's very unusual to see more wear than this. My last 156 I put 155,000 miles on it. The seats weren't even this worn. It's ridiculously how good it is. Now, starting on the door, the first thing you'll see is this diagonal stitching pattern. This is, again, another Alfa thing. It's in my 145, it's in 166s, it's in 164s. This pattern goes back for many, many, many years, but I think back to the 70s or 60s even. You'll find this pattern in many Alfas. And this is proper leather in the door. Above that we have a, well, soft to the touch, but actually hard plastic textured area at the top with another proper metal door handle in a disappointingly smooth plastic surround. Then we go back down to the interior coloured area with the cream sort of softer touch, vinyl-y almost feeling area, which carries a little bit of the metal trim over from the dashboard, which we'll talk more about in a second. Electric adjustable mirrors, which are also foldable. We've got 4 electric windows, 1 touch up and down on all 4 of them, I believe, which is amazing. Door pocket's a little bit small, but it is there. And with speakers tucked behind these interior trim coloured covers with a little bit of a satin ring around. And they are incredible speakers as well, really, really high quality. Moving into the car, we do have an Alfa Romeo kick plate on the side. I actually found the proper Alfa 159 deep pile carpets from my old black 159 from years ago. So I'm using these at the moment, but underneath that you do find, in this particular car, cream carpet, which is frankly a brave choice. And we've got the Alfa Romeo logos embossed into the pedals. And moving back to these seats, these are a masterpiece in card seat design. We do of course have the cross and serpent here in the headrest, and that's sitting on top of this incredibly sculpted and refined seat with the softest leather you're ever going to touch. This is also multi-way electric and with 3 memories and heating. It is literally everything you could desire. That metal matching trim I mentioned on the driver's door, you'll see how with the door shut it follows into the design of the dashboard, and that same metal is repeated here in the centre section and on the steering wheel. This is like a champagne gold. Again, this car is quite an unusual trim because I don't think I've ever seen a 159 with champagne coloured metal before. Normally it's like a grey or a silver or even like a carbon fibre look. I've never seen one with this particular colour on. Anyway, back to the important stuff. What's the T-shelf like? Well, we've got a large flat area here, so we do have some T-shelf action, but there's a big ventilation grille just there, so you've got to be super careful not to drop anything into there, or you'll be raining what's-it crumbs up onto your windscreen forevermore after that. So it's a 7 out of 10 T-shelf area. Harking back to previous Alfa, I think the 156 did it, the 145 and 146 definitely do it. The dashboard in the passenger area scoops away from the passenger, so it gives a much more open feeling to the passenger sitting on the left, or the right if it's a left-hand drive car. In the centre we have this wonderful repeating theme of the triple circles. We've got the triple vents sitting above the triple dials. We've got a turbo dial. I mean, if that is not the most cool thing on any car you're ever going to come across, you should make it the thing you want on your next car. Even if you buy an EV, get a turbo boost gauge because it just looks absolutely awesome. I think you might be noticing next to that is this. This is the key slot just here. This big square key goes in there and the start button sits next to it. Now you might be thinking, that's a bit of a weird place to put your key. Do you often get out of the car and forget to take the key with you and leave the car just kind of semi-switched on? And the answer is yes, all the time. It's really quite annoying. And also you can't have too many things on your keyring because if they hang down too far, they will scratch this bit of metal just here. So it's not a brilliant bit of design from Alfa just there. But it was that time in the early noughties when everything was getting the push the key in the dashboard, then you get the start stop button thing, which is actually a bit crap, to be honest. Next to that, we've got a doubled in radio. This is actually a really good radio. It's an FM, AM, CD player, all that kind of thing. You could get Blue and Me, which is like a Bluetooth hookup for the phones, so you could play music through it and make phone calls. This particular car I don't think has it. At least or at least if it has, I've not been able to make it work, but I think it probably hasn't got it. I can't share the audio quality with you for two reasons. Firstly, the microphone pickup and your playback will not do it justice, and secondly, whatever is playing will be copyrighted. But the audio quality of these speakers is phenomenal. I mean, I get into a lot of cars and listen to a lot of car radios. This is up there as one of the best. It's really, really very good indeed. Just the audio quality is stunning. Below that, we've got dual zone climate control, air conditioning, obviously that kind of malarkey. And the groove metal continues down here to the gear shift area. This one is the 6-speed manual. This is a wonderful gearbox. There were a couple of other gearbox options available, but this is the one to go for. And we've got a couple more buttons. Again, this little round theme with the little satin surround continues, door locks, stability control and hazard lights all lurking down here. And moving across to the steering wheel, it's another lovely piece of design from Alfa here. It's a hard leather, so it's tactile, leather soft, but it's not padded underneath, so you do have a nice firm grip, like kind of on an old school racing car. And in the middle of it, we've got more of the brushed or grooved aluminium and the champagne. We've got radio controls and other controls. Yet another Alfa Romeo Cross and Serpent badge, and that is on the horn. Now that is a PARP with some provenance. That's a PARP that's carrying on decades of history into the future, or at least trying its best to. Looking forward of that, we have got our dials, speedometer whizzing up to 160 miles an hour, and our rev counter being a diesel redlining at 4,500 RPM. That's why you need the 6-speed gearbox. Now this center information area just here is quite interesting, because back in 2005 this was really quite cool to have like a pixel based graphic readout for giving you lots of information. If I get into the menus just here, you can split this into your travel distance and fuel consumption and that kind of thing. This was all very exciting back then, but today this does look kind of very dated indeed. But I quite like it. It's kind of retro in a rather charming way. I'll just quickly mention we've got the big stalks behind the steering wheel. They're big square units like a chalk ice on either side, but below the indicators we have got our cruise control. And if you remember the Jeremy Clarkson thing on Top Gear yonks ago, making a fuss about this is a bad location for cruise control because you couldn't see it clearly enough, and he had panicked on a motorway because something stopped and he couldn't turn the cruise control off. And I thought at the time, that's daft, because all you have to do to turn the cruise control off is push the brake. So he was just making a fuss about nothing, but that's Jeremy Clarkson for you. Now behind the gear shift we have got a couple of little areas. One thing you'll notice we haven't found so far are cup holders, because 2005 cup holders was still a bit of a niche novelty in a way. We have got a roll top cupboard just here which slides up there, giving us the most pointless tiny coffee cup holder in here. If you put a paper coffee cup in there, it will flex and knock the plastic lid off and scald you. If you try and put a metal cup in there, like a reusable cup, it won't fit. And if you pull out the only power socket I can find and try and charge your phone, then you can't use it anyway. So that's all good. Behind that we have got an armrest which contains a nicely felted area for stuff in the top. I will clean that. I think that was some sweets that went gooey while the car was in storage. We have a deeper cubby hole area which does have these curious round cutouts on the side, and these are so you can actually stand cups in there. Well, you can stand one cup in there at the very least, so you can put a proper cup in there, but it doesn't mean you're driving around with your armrest not really very comfortable. Also, you'll notice there's a little dial in here, and this is because this is connected to your air conditioning. So if you're running the aircon on a hot day, you can keep your chocolate bars and your cans of drink cool in there, or if it's a warm day, I think you can even run a heater into it to keep things cool, warm. I'm not quite sure on that one, I've only ever used it on the aircon setting. Anyway, up above we have got quite a fancy little button area for our lights and for our boot release. And let's have a quick look in the back of the car. Now the rear doors are as delightful as the front doors. Stepping inside we have more of the same heavily grooved stitched leather which looks and feels phenomenal. It's not a huge amount of legroom, but there is enough, especially if you push the passenger seat forward a bit. We have got an armrest which has got a storage area in it, great for kids on long journeys, and a hatch through into the boot. And we've got ventilation and a little bit of storage in there. Plus we've also got map pockets on the back of the doors. No cup holders in the back though, you'll notice that, but it is a car of 2005. But also we'd have twin speakers as well, a mid-range and woofer and tweeter tucked into the door. So again, killer audio. So moving on again. So let's talk about how this thing actually drives now. and it is really nice. It's got a wonderful feel to it, so the steering is deliberately quite heavily weighted, so sports car like, in that it feels like you've got to put some effort into it, and it rewards you with that. It's front wheel drive, but you can feel what's going on through the front wheels. My previous 159 that I owned years ago was one of the Q4 ones, because there were two transmission of power options. Most cars were front wheel drive, but if you got the 2.4 diesel or the V6 petrol, you could spec it with a Q4 Torsen diff four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive system, which makes the thing pretty formidable. It's one of the systems that puts the majority of the power to the back of the car, so it feels like you're driving a rear-wheel drive car most of the time. After that car, I kind of didn't want to drive another 159, thinking the front-wheel drive would be lackluster and unimpressive, but to be honest, it really is very good indeed. You can barrel into a corner and it feels fully composed, fully in control, absolutely gallons of grip. And there are two spring rate settings you can get from the factory. This is the Lusso setting with the taller suspension. It's softer as well, with smaller wheels, higher sidewalls on your tyres and everything. So it's a much softer riding car, but even this feels surprisingly grippy and agile through the corners. The TI spec Turismo Internazionale, that is the more sporting option. That comes with 25mm lower springs and 19-inch wheels with much narrower, slimmer tyres, so you feel every grain of sand, every blade of grass on the road as you go over it. So I'm going back the way I came because they've shut the road I was going to drive down. So I'll drive down here again instead. The 6-speed manual is lovely. It's a slick mechanical thing which kind of notches into each gear, and it's got a hefty ball on the end, and it feels like a wave of momentum as you shove the stick up through the gears. It's really quite a cool thing to use. And the brakes, a firm pedal, instantly hard under your foot and snatch the car to a standstill very quickly indeed. So driving the car, it does feel alive like an Alfa Romeo should do, because any true Alfa should feel alive and dainty in your hands. It should feel like a car you can play with through a corner. It should be a friend who you want to go out for a drive with. And even though this is a big saloon, it does feel nimble and chuckable in a way that you really don't get with something boring. The body shell is significantly stiffer than any model that came before, and that stiffer body shell has now got a stiffness rating of 180,000 DA/Nm/rod or something. You know what that means, don't you? So the ride and handling are significantly improved, as is the crash safety as well. The reliability was really very good when it was new, and 20 years on, it's actually holding up pretty well. As long as you remember to do the maintenance, change your timing belts, change your oil, that kind of stuff, the cars do go on. Obviously now there is rust issues, but that's after 2 decades of living in salty conditions. So why do I say it's the least Alfa-y of the Alfas? Ooh, an SLK. Well, the thing is, it's that last bit. It's the heaviness, the weight of it that makes it feel Germanic or Swedish in some ways and solid, that takes away a bit of the Alfa-ness. The fact you get into the car and you're not wondering if you're going to get there at the other end of your journey. Is it still going to be running properly? It's almost too good. They've done too well at making this too good of a car. This is the problem. So yes, it is the best Alfa ever, but by making it refined and making it reliable and making it solid so the doors thump with a proper ka-chunk, have they taken away some of that innate crazy Italianness to make it just a little bit daft? Is this too sensible to be an Alfa Romeo? I do wonder if the Swedishness has crept in a little bit too far. Now don't worry, I'm not saying that as a criticism, because I love Swedish cars as well. I love Sweden, I speak Swedish a bit. But is that at the expense of just the sheer daftness of an Italian car? An Italian car should really be silly and impractical. Another SLK, they're everywhere today. I do like that generation. But a big part of a car's personality is, of course, the engine. And you might be thinking a sports car or a sports saloon really shouldn't be having a diesel engine in it, but this is the 5-cylinder 20 valve, which is something very special indeed, and you ride on a wave of insane torque. Let's hit the dual carriageway here. I hope you can't see the speedometer, because it is ridiculous. Honestly, it's ridiculous. And it sounds so good as well. When it's under load, when it's revving, it just is exquisite. It's a little kind of off-kilter, off-camber kind of, almost, I don't know how to describe it. A whining burr. It's wonderful. Then you hit the 6th gear, 70 miles an hour, and it's almost silent. Just a little kind of a whine, a little kind of a whir. It really is a very special unit. It's not often that you're given the choice between a diesel and a V6, and it's actually a difficult decision to make. You know, I think I'd actually go for this over the V6, partly because this is an interesting noise. It's more economical. The 0 to 60 time on this car is, I believe, about 8 seconds, depending on whether it's the 200 or the 210 horsepower version. There is an automatic as well, but we won't mention that because why would you? The manual's far too much fun. They evolved the design through the years. They brought out a sport wagon in 2006, and in 2008 they refined the thing. They answered the criticisms that the car was too heavy by stripping out 45 kilograms from the car overall weight. And bear in mind, it was a bigger machine than previously. It's 225 millimeters longer than a 156 and 85 millimeters wider, so it's a more substantial car, pushing it into a bigger class of vehicle. Now, for the aficionado of the 159, there is a sweet spot when it comes to spec, at least in the UK anyway. Because in 2006, the 2.4 gained the full 210 horsepower that it was going to get, but in 2008, the TI spec was loaded with literally every option. There was nothing apart from an automatic that you could choose extra. 2009, they started decontenting it and making things optional again. So if you want the absolute best sweet spot, you need to go for a 2008. So thank you for joining me in this ride out in this absolutely magnificent and unusually spec'd 159 Rosso red with this lovely light tan interior and the 2.4. This is about as good as a 159 gets. If you've enjoyed this, please do of course hit like and subscribe, and join us again next time driving something completely different.